Hello everyone, and welcome back to my journey of creating a city builder game from scratch using my own engine. I'm documenting the entire process from start all the way up to release, and this week I'm going to be working on adding vehicles and traffic into the game. So, quick reminder of where I got up to last time. I was implementing people and pathfinding, and since then I've had to work through a whole load of edge cases and bugs to get it all working smoothly. So for example, I had to handle the situation where the player changes the road layouts while a person's doing its path, or if the user deletes the destination node or deletes the current road that the person's on. And then there were a whole load of special cases to do with how the network was represented in the code. For example, two nodes being connected to each other twice, or one node being connected to itself, or the worst of them all, just a disconnected loop, which is basically an edge with no nodes, which really messed things up in the code. But that's all sorted out now, so this week I'm going to be moving on and implementing vehicles. So as I've been doing with all of the features in this game so far, I first just want to implement the simplest possible version of vehicles. So I'm only going to be adding cars this week, but I'll definitely add more vehicles further down the line. So I've just been planning out in Trello the exact steps that I need to take in order to implement the cars, and as you can see, the first step is just to get some car models into the game, and in order to do that I first need to create a 3D car model. So I've just created an extremely simple car model in Blender, and I exported it from Blender, converted it into the mesh format that my game uses, and I've put that into an entity file, which is the file type that my game uses to load up entities. It just contains all of the abilities that an entity should have, such as the ability to be rendered, the ability to move, the ability to do pathfinding, and the temporary AI that I've been using for the people so far. And in the game, without having to add any lines of code, you can see that I've now got cars driving around, with the one problem being that, seeing as they're using the same AI as the people, they're currently driving on the pavements. So that's what I'm going to sort out next. To get the cars to travel on the roads, I need to generate the paths on the roads, like I did last time with the pavements. But I actually think this might be easier with the roads, because there are only really three things that a car can do on a road tile. It can either travel straight across it, it can do a short right turn, or it can do a slightly larger curved left turn. And at the moment, with the roads that I have in the game, these are the only three possibilities, so I only have to implement these three things for now. So I've been getting started with some programming to get the road path generation set up. So every road tile now has the possibility of generating a path across it, and I've just implemented the generation for the straight roads, which is very simple. I just add a path marker at the end of the road, either on the left side or the right side of the road, depending on which side the car is driving. And in the game you can see that working quite nicely here with this car, which is travelling along the straight road, generating the path markers correctly. So it's staying on the correct side of the road, and it even works fairly well for the curved roads as well, although it might be nice to have a few more path markers to make the curves a bit more smooth. So that's what I'll implement next, after I've had a quick lunch. Onto the curved roads now. I've just been doing the path generation for both the left and the right hand turns, and then here I've got a bit of code that determines what type of path should be generated, whether it's a straight path or a curved path. And so in the game, the path generation for the cars is now working pretty much perfectly, and we've got some smooth curves being generated around these corners, allowing the cars to move very nicely around on the roads. And that means that I can now have a town full of people and cars all moving around happily together, although I do still need to do quite a bit of work on the AI for the cars. They're not exactly careful drivers just yet. Next up, I want to allow the cars to park at the side of the road, so I've just been doing some planning for that, and I'll get started implementing it in a bit. But first, I just want to introduce you to someone, and that is Rufus. I finally got a dog. I've been wanting to get a dog for years. It's always been a bit of a dream of mine. but it never seems like it was the right time to do that because we've been moving flat a lot. But we're now finally pretty much settled here in Hamburg. We don't plan on moving anytime soon. We live in a really nice dog-friendly area with fields everywhere, and I obviously work from home, so it seemed like it was finally the perfect time to get a dog. And it's been amazing so far. Rufus is just the cutest, and I'm sure you're going to be seeing him occasionally popping up in the vlogs from now on. Before I get into the parking stuff, I just had to make some slight alterations to the movement code for the car, so that's what I've been doing to finish off the day, just allowing the car to travel at different speeds so that when I implement the parking stuff, I'll be able to get the car to slow down as it's approaching the parking space. So, getting started on the parking stuff this morning, and the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to allow cars to park at the side of the road. So I've given every straight road tile one parking space on either side of the road, and then when a car is travelling to a parking space, most of the journey is the same, it just generates the path as it always does, but then for that final road tile, it generates the path markers in the position of the parking space, and you can see that happening here, and that of course causes the car to pull over to the side of the road and stop in the parking space. Next up today, I just created a couple of tree models, which is absolutely not what I'm meant to be working on at the moment, but I was just getting very bored of the completely empty world, so I've added a few trees in, scattered them around, and everything looks a little bit nicer now. I've also been doing more work on the parking stuff, and I've added it into the car's current AI, so you can see the cars drive around and then park somewhere, they stay there for a bit, and then drive off, and just gives you an idea of what the roads are going to look like with cars driving around and also being parked. There is still one issue with the parking system, and that is that if the player alters the road's layout, then some of the parking spaces should no longer exist, like the one that the grey car is in, and I still have to work out what I'm going to do in that situation. But first, I'm going to move on now and start work on allowing the people to actually get in and drive the cars. I've just been working on the absolute basics of allowing people to own a car and then be able to get in and drive that car. So this guy here, he's going to get into his car, he'll teleport a bit there, that's something I need to work on, and now he's driving the car. Obviously his head is a little bit out of the window, again that's something I need to fix. But in general, he got in the car, he's driving the car, and then the car will park, or I guess he is going to park the car, and when the car stops, he can get out of it. So still lots of rough edges to smooth out there, but I'll work on that in a bit. I'm just going to take a quick break now to do some more work on my balcony, which has grown a lot since you last saw it in the last video. I've been growing quite a nice food forest out there. I'll give you a quick tour. So I've got some radishes growing here. Then I've got 4 tomato plants in total. I'm hoping that these are going to grow all the way up to the ceiling and produce lots of nice tomatoes. Then there's some peas climbing up here. I've also got some beans in the back which have just started to flower. And I did at one point have some mint growing in these troughs here, but somebody decided to dig them up. So I'm going to plant some radishes in there now. Been doing a bit of work on adding some animations for when the person gets in and out of a car to smooth things out. So here you can see the person getting into a car, nothing particularly fancy, just a nice smooth animation. And then when the person gets out of the car, it does quite a nice popping animation, which I'm really happy with. I think it's quite a nice satisfying pop that the person does when they get out of the car. And to implement this, I spent a while on this website called GraphToy trying to work out a nice equation that could control the scale of the person when he gets out to create that nice popping effect. So next I've been working on pretty much combining everything that I've worked on in the last 2 videos into this one single method, this travel to method, which I can now use to tell any person to travel anywhere in the world, and they'll do that in the quickest way possible. So to demonstrate that, you can see that I'm making the person travel to wherever I click in the world. And in the game, we can give this a go. So I've got a guy here, and let's say that he wants to travel all the way over to this house here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click outside that house, and you can see that he's set off walking along the pavement, and he's first going to go to his car. He'll then get into his car and start driving to the destination. And of course in the future I can add so much more complexity to the travel system. Maybe people could have multiple vehicles, so they might use their bike when it's only a short distance to travel. I can of course add public transport in the future, trains, things like that. But for now we're just keeping it simple. So the guy just goes to his car, gets in his car, drives to his destination. So you can see he's getting close to his destination now. So in a second he's going to pull over in the car and then get out of his car and finish his walk up to his destination. So from now on I can just use that travel to method to get any person to travel anywhere in the world. So that's all working pretty nicely, and I'm going to take a quick break, get outside and go for a walk with Rufus. So I've just been getting the people to start using this new travel system to travel all over the town, getting in their cars, driving off somewhere, parking, getting out again and walking around. And it makes the town look so alive. It's really cool to see so many things happening in the town. It's already, even at such an early stage of development, it's already quite a fun simulation to watch. At least for me as the developer. Maybe not so much for other people, but I'm enjoying watching it. Good morning everyone. Today I'm planning to do a bit more work on the car AI and the traffic to make sure that the cars don't crash into each other so much, because at the moment they just have no consideration for other cars or pedestrians. So I'm going to do that later today, but first I've been getting very bored of just having one building type in the game, so I'm going to make a model for another building. Just finished adding the new building into the game, which I think is looking pretty nice. I'm not sure it completely matches the style of the other buildings, but to be honest, I'm not too worried about how things look at the moment. I just wanted to get a bit more variation into the videos, really, have something else to look at. And I also wanted to practice my low poly building making skills, because I'm probably going to have to make quite a few of these buildings at some point. But I'm not even really sure what architectural style I want the buildings to have in this game yet. So these buildings are probably only temporary anyway. So I've been working on the traffic for a few hours now, and I've been making some progress. I'm just trying out a few different things because I've never really done anything like this before. So at the moment what I'm doing is that each car checks a certain distance ahead of it and tests to see if there's an obstacle within that distance. And if there is, then the car starts to slow down. And the closer the obstacle, the slower the car goes. So hopefully it should stop before it hits the obstacle. And in the game, I've been having some success with this. So if a car slows down to park, then the cars behind it also slow down instead of slamming into it, which is nice. At intersections, occasionally cars will now wait for other cars to go past first, which is good. And just in general, the cars seem to be keeping their distance from each other. Although there do still seem to be a few crazy drivers which crash into each other. But in general, it's definitely a lot better than before, except for intersections. Intersections are a bit of a mess right now. So I definitely need to rethink that. So obviously lots more work to do here, lots more programming. I need to rethink a few things. If any of you guys have any experience with this sort of stuff, then do feel free to give me pointers. But I'm going to stop now. It's a really nice day today, so I think we're going to try and find a secluded beach and just relax and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video. I'll continue on with the traffic stuff next time. Before I finish though, I want to give a big shout out to the top Patreon supporters from last month, who were Alexander Chavez, Timothy Gibbons, Marek Mikolajczyk, Andrew Witt, Miguel Diaz-Rivas, Leandro Di Pietro, Sean McCrory and Fred Mastro. So a massive thank you to you guys, and of course to everyone else supporting me on Patreon. For this week though, that is it, so thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.